Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time when you've given everything, poured your heart out, and yet you feel invisible. You're texting first, making plans, waiting for his call, adjusting your life around his schedule, convincing yourself that if you just love him harder, if you just prove yourself more, he'll finally see your worth. But let me tell you something, that day will never come until you stop chasing him. Because the hard truth is, people don't value what they don't have to fight for. When you're always available, when you're always the one reaching out, you become a background noise in his life instead of the melody that he can't stop thinking about. When you stop chasing, something shifts, something powerful. See, as long as you're the one always calling, always checking in, always adjusting your time for him, he never has to question what his life would look like without you. He knows you're there. He knows you'll always be there. And when someone believes they have unlimited access to you, they take that access for granted. But the moment you pull back, the moment you stop pouring into someone who isn't pouring into you, reality hits them like a freight train. The texts slow down, the phone calls stop, the good morning messages disappear, and at first, he might not even notice. He might assume you'll be back because you always come back. But then days pass, maybe weeks, and suddenly he starts wondering, where is she? Why isn't she reaching out? That's when he realizes he had something valuable, something rare. And now it's slipping through his fingers. It's not that he never saw your worth before, but he was comfortable. He knew you'd always be there, so he never felt the urgency to truly appreciate you. But now you're a void in his life, and voids demand attention. He starts replaying old memories, reliving moments where he should have tried harder, should have responded quicker, should have made you feel like the priority you always were. He wonders if you're moving on, if someone else is now receiving the energy he took for granted. And that's when the tables turn. That's when he realizes your worth wasn't in how much you chased him. Your worth was in the fact that you were willing to walk away when you weren't being valued. When something is always there, always accessible, always within reach, it becomes ordinary. It loses its spark. That's human nature. Think about it. When you have unlimited access to something, you assume it will always be there, and you stop seeing it as special. The same thing happens in relationships. If you're always the one making plans, always the one checking in, always the one ensuring the connection stays alive, he never has to wonder, never has to work, never has to fear losing you. You've made yourself too available, too predictable, and in doing so, you've unknowingly diminished your value in his eyes. But when you step back, when you stop initiating, stop filling the silence, stop making it easy, suddenly he notices. He notices the space you once occupied, the energy you once gave so freely, and that space, it feels different. It feels empty. That's when he starts to wonder, why isn't she calling? Why isn't she reaching out? Has she moved on? That's when he realizes the attention, the love, the effort you gave wasn't something he was entitled to. It was a gift. And that's the irony. Sometimes people only appreciate a gift when it's no longer theirs to unwrap. Respect isn't something you can beg for. It's something you command. And the way you command it isn't by overextending yourself, by proving your worth, or by bending over backward to make someone see your value. It's by knowing your own worth so deeply that you refuse to accept anything less than the respect you deserve. When you chase someone, when you constantly try to convince them to love you, to see you, to choose you, you're unknowingly teaching them that they don't have to respect you. You're showing them that they can put in minimal effort and still have access to you, that they can neglect you, ignore your needs, take you for granted, and you'll still be there. But the moment you stop, the moment you say, no more, I will not be an afterthought, I will not be an option, I will not beg for love, everything changes. You shift the power dynamic. Suddenly he realizes that he never had to fight for you before, and now he does. And that's when he starts to understand your true value. Because respect is not about words. It's about action. And the most powerful action you can take is walking away from anyone who doesn't see your worth. When you stop chasing, you force him to decide. Either step up or step out of your life. Either way, you win. Because you're no longer settling for anything less than you deserve. Your absence is not just silence, it's a lesson. A lesson, a limitless lesson, a lesson that speaks louder than words, louder than arguments, louder than all the times you tried to make him understand your worth while you were still there. See, as long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep giving, as long as you keep trying, he never has to question what life looks like without you. He never has to feel the weight of your absence. But the moment you walk away, everything shifts. At first, he might not react. He might even think you'll come back like you always have. But then the days pass, the messages stop, the calls don't come. And suddenly, there's a void where your presence used to be. That's when reality sets in. That's when he starts to feel the difference between what he took for granted and what he's now lost. He'll start to remember the little things. The way you checked on him, the way you made him feel, the way you supported him, even when he didn't deserve it. And for the first time, he'll have to face a question he never considered before. What if she's really gone? What if someone else is now appreciating what I neglected? That's when the regret sets in. That's when the realization hits. Because sometimes people don't wake up until the warmth is gone, until the energy that once surrounded them is no longer theirs. Your absence forces him to see what your presence really meant. And by then it might be too late. Men are wired to value what they work for. It's in their nature. It's not just about relationships, it's about everything in life. Think about it. When a man has to work hard for something, a job, a championship, a goal, he cherishes it because he invested in it. He put in the effort, the sweat, the struggle, and that struggle makes the reward feel earned, deserved, and worth holding on to. Now, apply that same principle to love. If a man doesn't have to put in any real effort to have you, if you're always the one reaching out, making plans, checking in, keeping things alive, what reason does he have to truly appreciate you? There's no challenge, no investment, no real emotional effort on his part. And because of that, your value in his eyes diminishes, not because you're not valuable, but because he never had to work for your presence. But when you stop chasing, when you stop making it easy, when you stop giving him everything without requiring anything in return, everything changes. Suddenly he feels the loss. He realizes that if he wants you in his life, he actually has to do something about it. He has to step up. He has to prove himself. And here's the thing, when a man truly values something, he will move mountains for it. He will show up. He will put in the effort, and he will make sure he doesn't lose it. But if he doesn't, if he lets you go without a fight, that tells you everything you need to know. Because the truth is, a man who truly wants you will never put himself in a position to lose you. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept, what you tolerate, and what you walk away from. Every time you let something slide, every time you ignore the red flags, excuse the neglect, or lower your standards just to keep someone around, you're sending a message that says, it's okay to treat me this way. People, whether consciously or subconsciously, take cues from your actions. If you constantly make yourself available to someone who only gives you the bare minimum, they learn that they don't have to do more. If you keep forgiving disrespect without requiring change behavior, they learn that they can get away with it. If you stay, even when you know deep down you deserve better, they learn that they don't have to value you because you're not valuing yourself. But the moment you decide to raise your standards, the moment you make it clear that you will not accept half-hearted love, inconsistent effort, or being treated as an option, that's when everything shifts. That's when they are forced to either rise to the level of respect you demand or lose access to you. And this is the truth. The people who genuinely care about you will step up. They will adjust, they will respect your boundaries, and they will value you the way you deserve. The ones who don't, they were never meant to stay in your life anyway. So remember, you don't just teach people how to treat you, you set the standard. And if you want to be treated like a priority, you have to act like one first. The strongest position you can be in is needing no one. That doesn't mean you don't want love, companionship, or connection. It means that your happiness, your self-worth, and your emotional stability are not dependent on anyone else. When you reach this level of emotional independence, everything changes, including the way people treat you. See, when you chase someone, when you put them on a pedestal, when you make them the center of your world, you unknowingly give them power over you. You send the message that your happiness is tied to their presence, their attention, their validation. And the moment someone realizes you need them more than they need you, the balance shifts. And not in your favor. But when you step back, when you reclaim your energy, when you make it clear that your world keeps spinning with or without them, that's when they start to look at you differently. Why? Because emotional independence is attractive. Confidence is attractive. A person who knows their worth and isn't afraid to walk away commands respect. And here's the truth. The less you rely on someone else for your emotional fulfillment, the more control you have over your own life. When you don't need anyone to complete you, you stop tolerating bare minimum effort. You stop chasing people who don't prioritize you. You stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself. And in that moment, when you become whole within yourself, that's when people start chasing you. Because nothing is more powerful than a person who is perfectly fine on their own, but is willing to share their life only with those who truly deserve it. When you stop chasing, he will feel the void you once filled. At first, he might not even notice. He might go about his life, assuming you'll always be there, always ready to pick up the pieces, always ready to forgive and forget. But the moment you stop, the moment you pull back, it forces him to confront something uncomfortable, your absence. Your presence in his life wasn't just physical, it was energy, it was support, it was love, it was the way you showed up, the way you cared, the way you made him feel seen. All of that creates a space that can't just be replaced by anyone or anything. When you take that away, it's like pulling a missing puzzle piece from the picture. The whole thing becomes incomplete. And that's when the realization hits. He starts noticing the little things, the way you used to make him laugh, the way you took the time to check in, the way your smile brightened his day. He starts to see that he didn't just lose a girlfriend, he lost someone who brought balance, who added value to his life. He starts to wonder, what would it be like without her? It's in that absence that the weight of your value becomes undeniable. The more space you create, the more he'll see how much you were contributing to his life. Your absence forces him to reflect on the relationship, to evaluate what he had. And for the first time, he begins to understand that your worth wasn't just in the things you did for him, but in who you were. And when he feels that void, when he truly realizes what he's lost, that's when the game changes. It's when he begins to see you not as something he could take for granted, but as something he needs to fight for. The truth is, your absence doesn't just make him miss you, it makes him understand, sometimes for the first time, what you brought into his world. Your energy is one of the most precious things you can offer. It's not just your time or your presence. It's the love, the care, the emotional investment that you pour into someone. And when you're giving that energy to someone who doesn't value it, who doesn't appreciate it, who isn't reciprocating it, you're wasting one of your most valuable resources. Think about it. How much of yourself have you given to someone who barely acknowledges your effort? How much of your time have you spent on someone who takes you for granted? It's easy to get lost in the cycle of constantly giving, constantly doing, and constantly trying to make things work. But every time you do that, you're giving away pieces of yourself to someone who hasn't earned them. The reality is, when you give too much to the wrong person, you lose a part of your energy that can be spent on things that truly matter, on things that actually nourish you. When you stop investing in someone who isn't reciprocating, you start to reclaim that energy. You start to redirect it toward yourself, toward your growth, your goals, your happiness. And here's the thing, when you start to conserve that energy, when you stop giving it away so freely to those who don't deserve it, you create space for better things, for better people, for healthier relationships. When you stop giving everything to someone who isn't matching your effort, you start giving more to yourself. And that's when your life begins to shift. Your energy is precious, and it's something that should never be wasted. The more you recognize that and start protecting it, the more you realize that you don't need to chase after anyone to prove your worth. You don't need to beg for attention or validation. When you begin to conserve your energy and only invest it in what truly matters, that's when you start seeing the true value of your time and your love, And that's when others begin to see it too. The moment you realize that you are the prize is the moment everything shifts in your life. And I'm not talking about superficial confidence or ego. I'm talking about a deep, unwavering belief in your own worth. This isn't about arrogance. It's about knowing without a doubt that you are worthy of love, respect, and the very best that life has to offer. When you start to see yourself as the prize, you stop settling for less than what you deserve. You stop accepting half-hearted efforts. You stop chasing after people who only offer crumbs. And you stop waiting around for validation from others. Instead, you begin to prioritize yourself. You start investing in your own growth, your own happiness, and your own well-being. You realize that you don't need anyone to complete you because you are already whole. And here's the beauty of it. When you start living with this mindset, you become magnetic. People start to notice you in a different light. You stop chasing and they start chasing you because they see the value in you that you have already recognized. You become the person everyone wants to be around, not because you're trying to prove your worth, but because you know your worth, and that energy is undeniable. But the key is you have to believe it first. You have to stop doubting your value, stop questioning your worth, and stop allowing others to define it for you. The moment you embody the truth that you are the prize, everything around you changes. You stop giving your time to people who don't appreciate it. You stop bending over backwards to get love from those who can't give it back. You stop chasing after anyone who doesn't see your worth because you know that if they don't, they aren't worth your time. You are the prize. And the moment you internalize that truth and start living by it, you will see the world around you start to reflect it. Because the truth is, when you stop chasing and start recognizing your own worth, that's when others start to realize it too.